Guys, I would be doing you all a huge disservice if I came on here and just defended one side, right? Like if I said if it's a right-wing idea, it's good. If it's a left-wing idea, it's bad. And that's how I evaluated everything. And a lot of the YouTube channels do that, okay? And that's not how I view things. That's not my goal. I want to be sincere to you guys and tell you guys how I honestly feel. Now, I want to talk about Pierre Poilievre because I have been a supporter of his. I think that for the most part, he is the best candidate that is running in the election. But over the weekend, I have to say Pierre did something that I didn't really like. Now, there was this press conference that he did, made the announcement, I think originally on social media. There was a nice video that was done, and they put out a press release from the Conservative Party about this idea how the Conservative Party, wants to introduce a policy where they will allow for deferral of capital gains on investments or assets at the time of crystallizing, should you reinvest those gains into Canada. Now, at first, I was thrilled. I was absolutely over the moon because I'm thinking here, I'm a guy that works in Canadian venture capital. We are starved for capital. And this is exactly what we need here. We need more capital flowing into our junior names, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. I know everybody's like, oh, this is just a tax break for the rich. And to some extent it is. But we also need jobs. See, there's two things that every young voter I talk to, and a lot of you guys talk to me on social media, on the various platforms about what your issues are. And those two themes are pretty clear at this point. One is housing affordability. The other is job opportunities. And by allowing more investment into the stock market here in Canada is only going to create more jobs. I think it's a fantastic thing, and it's something that we desperately need. I think it's a forward-looking idea, and it is great. But then, as I started to think about it, and I started to see some people comment on social media, it dawned on me that this idea didn't just apply to securities. It also applied to real estate investors. So someone who makes a great real estate investment can then sell that and then use it to go get more leverage and buy a bunch of new real estate properties. And I think that this is a huge misstep for Pierre. Out of all the speculation I've heard about all the things he's done wrong, and most of which I think is unfair, I think that this is a big one. I think that if I were a young person and I saw this policy announcement, I would be livid. I would be pissed off. Because if there's one thing we don't need in Canada, it's more investment into real estate. And initially, like you think about it, it could have been brilliant because you could have people crystallizing in investments in real estate, putting pressure on the bid, selling, and putting that into the stock market, which would create jobs. I'm talking about the Canadian stock market, which barely exists at this point because everybody has been plowing so much money into real estate. But instead, we're opening the door to more real estate investment. And we always hear all these ideas of what's wrong with Canadian real estate, whether it's permitting or regulations or nasty real estate agents and mortgage brokers, money laundering. We've heard it all, and it gets discussed ad nauseum. I've discussed it on my channel ad nauseum. But you know one thing that nobody says is a problem? A lack of investment into real estate. The only thing that this policy really does, in my view, is it just opens up the window for more real estate investment, for more real estate speculation. So if I were a young person in Canada and I saw this policy announcement, I'd be pissed. The optics are terrible. A tax break for landlords and investors while renters struggle. That's some liberal level elitism right there if I've ever seen it. The alternative was simple. Restrict the deferral to productive business investments only. Leave real estate out of it. But no, Poilievre caved to the property investor lobby, and now he's handing Carney an attack ad on a silver platter. If he really wanted to help young Canadians, here's what this policy should have looked like. Deferral only for business investments. stocks, startups, manufacturing. Well, he'd also exclude real estate entirely, or at least restrict it to purpose-built rentals, not flipping condos. Instead, we get a handout to landlords. Well, the housing crisis gets worse. Poilievre had a chance to be bold, to side with young workers over property speculators, with entrepreneurs over rent seekers. Instead, he chose a half measure that helps the wealthy recycle capital into more unproductive real estate. Look, this isn't just bad economics, it's bad politics. Young people don't want more tax breaks for landlords. They want affordable homes and real job opportunities. Now, if Pierre doesn't fix this, he'll lose the very voters who brought him this far. And he'll deserve it. Because the one thing worse than a housing bubble is policy that keeps it going.